Okay, hi Archie, thanks for joining me. Why don't you just give a brief explainer about who you are, where you're studying, what you're studying, and your current situation?
Yeah, no problem. So my name's Archie Turley at Durham University, studying maths, economics, and computer science in my second year. And last summer, I did the summer analyst program. And then this year, I've gone through a process of applying to a load of different placement years, and fortunately managed to secure the sales and trading placement at Morgan Stanley.
Cool. And obviously an awesome experience you're about to undertake with MS, but I know, having spoken to you before, that's the end result, but maybe we could rewind the clock a little bit. You said you're in your second year. So in your first year, were you even aware of what to do and the application timings and so forth?
Yeah, so I wasn't very aware, but I knew that finance was an area I wanted to go into. And in and amongst the finance society and my peers, people have started to apply to spring weeks. And so even though I was first year of 4 years, I think one of the best things I did for getting the process now is applying to these spring weeks in first year. I applied to like 10 or 15, didn't get any of them, didn't even get an interview at any of them. But learning what I needed to do better for next year for placements when I thought it really mattered to me, and B, learning the process, the amount of practice. I did 10 or 15 of those maths tests and logical reasoning tests that you'll have to do that tend to be the same at the same firms the next year. All getting used to higher views and all that side of the process, I think, is really invaluable.
So coming to the Amplify program, what is it that you were looking to get out of that to help then get over that hurdle of getting into interviews and assessment centers?
So I think the baseline thing for me was getting experience on my CV and knowledge for myself about the industry of finance. The biggest thing I realized that I actually didn't know much at all. What's the difference between IBD and sales and trading? No, I was just applying to banks in first year, and I just thought, they use numbers to make money. That's all I knew, basically. So getting the knowledge from the AmplifyME process was really important, obviously in interviews and stuff. And just in general, on my CV, I had no indication that I was interested in the industry of finance. I just had all my past work experience, a waiter, a sports coach, a this or that, and someone sat down with me and they were like, a finance firm is never going to take you with this. I know you're 18, 19, and this seems like all you should have ever done, but they want to see that you're interested. So that was when I came across the finance accelerator and stuff, and I thought, I've got to start doing some programs, doing some courses to really up that finance experience.
Yeah, I know when you've talked about the AmplifyME summer program was the network. How did that network help you in your situation?
Yeah, so I think there's, outside of the 3 weeks, the networking that you get with AmplifyME process is really useful. For me, it's the reason why I applied to the Morgan Stanley program that I did, because I met so many people at the Morgan Stanley Day that you guys do. And then through the course, you hear about a load of people who have done AmplifyME. So having spoken to a few people from Morgan Stanley, I really got an insight into their culture and stuff like that, and put these conversations on my cover letter or mention them in interviews. And actually after interviews, people would bring up to say, I spoke to an interviewer that I had this conversation with someone. That person that I had a conversation with would then send me a message on LinkedIn being like, so-and-so has told me that you had a great interview or whatever. So they clearly have that conversation afterwards about you. So having someone that can speak to your character, that says, yeah, we've had a conversation, he's interested in this, hopefully I like him or I vouch for him or whatever it is, I think is really invaluable in the process. So that really helped me. Yeah.
I know that students often know that they should do outreach and build networks, but what did that relationship building actually look like for you? Presumably it was more than just one email.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think what's really important is if you just reach out cold, that can sometimes work, but you have to understand that 90% of the time they're just not going to reply. So do that, try and reach out and understand that them not replying isn't them being rude, they're just really busy, and that's that. But the best thing you can do is go to something like our Morgan Stanley Day or within the course, and your follow-up is talking about what they've said. So if they've done a talk to multiple people, your follow-up isn't, hi, can you please help me? I'm in this situation. It's, hi, I heard about this that you said, really interested in that. Actually, you did the placement at Morgan Stanley. Can you tell me a bit more about your experience or what you're doing or whatever? And you reach out more, you express your interest in them, and they'll always more likely to bite to that than just, hi, can you help me? Basically.
And just touching on the placement year, because I know I often get questions from students about what are the placement year options, because typically it's more spring, summer internships route that people go down. So what does that landscape look like for placement opportunities?
Yeah, so it's actually, there are quite a few placements out there, but in terms of each bank will probably do 1 or 2 placements, not the full. Some banks do, a summer analyst program in individual desks, FIC or whatever, let alone an IBD side versus sales and trading. So granted, they're fewer and further between. But I think the placement year is obviously a great thing to get 12 months insight into the bank when you're still at university. And so for me, I was applying to a massive range of consulting, IBD, sales and trading, because these places just don't always have the full range of placement years on offer. So you have to be willing to do that maybe a bit more. But I think it's a great program to go down, because the spring week summer analyst grad thing is so competitive, because it's what everyone has in mind, right?
Yeah. And I know you mentioned with the Amplify experience with the application support, because I guess we're kind of more known for simulations and practical training. So how did the team help on that element?
Yeah, so Emre was really useful. After the program, I reached out to him and helped me with my CV and cover letter, especially writing for Morgan Stanley. And then there was a fast track process. So I got a fast track from AmplifyME after the summer course through to Morgan Stanley. And I think having your application as one of the first that reaches the desk is just, invaluable. So whether that's, the day that the application is going to come out and you apply to it, or you're fortunate enough to get some kind of fast track, all these things, I think they're the applications that I was the most successful with, 100%. If you apply 2 weeks late, they've probably filled positions in their head already, because the amount of applications that they've got.
Yeah. And then I know that you were successful in a couple of different places in the end. And so you had that rare opportunity, I guess, that all students would hope for, which is the ability to have some options. So between those options, there was a few sell side, buy side avenues you could have pursued. So what was the kind of deal breaker? That was it just purely because it was sales trading, you felt more comfortable with MS because you had more visibility? Was that the kind of key point?
Yeah, so I think from a firm's perspective, MS was the firm that I'd had the visibility and the sort of cultural insight, because I've spoken to a number of people. So that was definitely my number one choice from that point of view. But I think in terms of choosing, buy side, sell side, IBD, when I had those offers kicking around, was just going back to my summer course and thinking what week, because you guys split it up into those 3 weeks, what week did I most enjoy? Because as I said, if you gave me a year ago, if you said UBS banking, Morgan Stanley sales and trading, or BlackRock, I wouldn't know what they did differently. I'd be like, great, I'll pick one out of a hat. So yeah, using that 3 week experience to be like, okay, I like this, I like this, I like that, but what did I most enjoy, was definitely the role side of the choice decision making.
So with things like the YouTube videos, the daily newsletter, podcast, do you still use that sort of thing to just keep on top of what's going on in markets and stuff like that?
Yeah, 100%. Well, for the interviews, obviously I couldn't recommend that enough in terms of having an idea of what's going on. But then I think once you get an offer, it's probably even more important that between my offer and June, I mean, I haven't even gone in June yet, so tell me if I'm different, if it's different, but to stay up to date with markets and not walk onto a desk cold is really important. I think somebody said on the summer course that the markets is like a book, and you can't jump into chapter 23 and understand what's going on. And that, I thought that was really true. Like, you can't just pick up an FT and tell a story and be like, you know, that news article really interested me, because they're always going to have questions. So I said, how did that compare to the last CPI report or the last non-farm payroll, or, you know, whatever it is? It's a story. So the earlier you get into the story, the more you'll understand what's going on by the time you get to the interview process. I think that was just so true. I can't remember who said it, but it was so true.
Yeah. That fluency is, you know, it's when you hear someone talk like a foreign language, you know whether they've just learned or they're fluent. It's quite clear to see. And I think that knowledge, as you said, is from a hiring manager's point of view, or joining a desk, you'll get found out quite quickly if it's superficial. But maybe we could finish with a couple of pieces of advice. I know thinking about the application stage can add a lot of anxiety to people for obvious reasons. So I know you've talked before about like a 5-step plan. I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing for me in interviews was to just be natural and stay relaxed, because people can just come across so robotic if they've practiced everything. And the way I would stay relaxed is just by going through this 5-step plan. If I knew the answers to these 5 questions in my head before I went into an interview, I knew that I was prepared and I shouldn't worry about anything else. And they were just like the basic ones: why the firm, why the role, questions for the interviewer, really important, and then pitch me a stock and a news article that you're interested in. And if that's M&A or something, I would say the recent news article, if that's a deal that they've been on, that's even more valuable. But just having those 5 things means you just stay relaxed and you're not worried about 20 things going into the interview.
Yeah. And presumably getting to that point was a deal of resilience built up through rejections and things like that. So was there a process at all where you would kind of step back and after a application process didn't progress, did you have any sort of process to self-critique and review and then understand what went wrong? Was there a process to that as well?
Yeah, well, I think it's very difficult to do that in one application cycle, because you're getting rejections, but you've got this next interview to worry about. So everything's just kicking off. Obviously, my real reflection was the previous year after those rejections from spring weeks. But I think after an interview, it's so easy to sit back and be like, God, that went wrong, or I said that, or I didn't quite know the answer to that question. But it's just pointless, and you can worry, you can be thinking about it whilst you're trying to do your next interview or whatever. Just park it aside and it'll be what it'll be. I think there's just no point in trying to worry about it, basically.
Yeah. Cool. Well, look, what I'll do is I'll share your LinkedIn. I hope you don't mind, with where we put out your blog of your story. I hope you don't mind people connecting with you. But thank you, Archie, and catch up again soon.
Thanks a lot, Anthony. Great to catch up.